So I wonder if we could start maybe just by you all introducing yourselves, maybe giving a shout out to co-authors, if you have co-authors, and saying maybe just a little bit about your book and the title and what you would say is the purpose of your book. And then we'll go into some broader questions about your books and the state of education today. So, Noreen, would you like to get us started?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Noreen Nassim Rodriguez, and I have the privilege of having written 2 books for this series. The first one is Social Studies for a Better World, which is co-authored with Katie Swalwell. My social studies soulmate is what I typically refer to her as. And I can talk about this more later, but we spent years as teacher educators looking for the perfect text to use in our social studies methods courses for elementary and early childhood teacher candidates. And we were just cobbling together all these different articles and readings, and we couldn't find anything that was like certainly oriented around social justice and also gave our students the tools they needed to learn how to be great social studies teachers. So as Toni Morrison said, if there's a book you want to read, but it hasn't been written yet, you must write it. So that's what this book is. And similarly, that same kind of motivation was behind the creation of my second book, which came out in December, Teaching Asian America in Elementary Classrooms, written with Soyeon An and Esther Kim, who are very dear friends and colleagues that I've been doing a lot of work with for the last decade around Asian America, particularly how to teach about Asian America through children's literature and primary sources. And there are a few resources out there or in progress for high school and college level teaching about Asian America, but there's nothing really substantive that takes a critical stance that's contemporary, looking at Asian America in terms of teaching it across disciplines to young children. So that's what we put together here.
Thank you. The books are so, I'm going to say this about everyone's books because all your books are so good, but all I can think of, these books are so good. If you all haven't read those 2 books, you really should read them. They're amazing, both in their voice and in the content. So amazing. How about Manya? You want to talk a little bit about your?
Sure, thank you. I'm Manya Whitaker. My book is Public School Equity, Educational Leadership for Justice. Came out in 2022 originally. I am actually a developmental educational psychologist. So as a teacher educator, I approach a lot of what I work on and what I educate pre-service teachers through a lens of why and not necessarily what. And so this book was, my attempt to give educators kind of a comprehensive approach to why educational equity sometimes doesn't work the way we think it should work. And I wanted them to think about building an entire system around equity rather than ad hoc pieces that tend not to be effective because they only address one cog in the wheel. So I talk about things from organizational structures, grading practices, curriculum, teacher evaluation, and even career advancement, because the entire system needs to have equity at the center or the strategies undermine themselves. So my approach is very much of centering the cognitions behind what does and does not work in public school systems.
Awesome. And that book is so good. Sorry, I'm going to say that about every book because I think all the books are good. Thank you so much for that. And I believe your book was either the first or second one that we signed in the series. How about Shawna?
Hi everyone. My name is Shawna Coppola, and my book is Literacy for All, a framework for anti-oppressive teaching. And like Noreen, I wrote the book that I wish that I had as a teacher. And it just uses a framework created out of 5 different principles that help us really see and practice our literacy teaching through an anti-oppressive lens. And one of the things that I really wish that I had known before, which is why I wrote the book, was I was just I think about how I was always one of those teachers who was lamenting that the system is broken, And when I realized finally that especially the US public school system was working exactly as it was intended, it changed my entire practice as a literacy educator. And so my hope is that folks are able to read this and just sort of rethink some of their assumptions about literacy and literacy teaching.
Thank you. And it's so good. If I remember correctly, I wrote to you and I was surprised you hadn't written a book about equity yet. It's like, hey, so glad to have that book in this series. Alex?
Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Chevron-Vanette. I had the honor of having my first book be the first one out in this series, and that was pretty exciting. So my first book here is Equity-Centered Trauma-Informed Education. And when Paul put out the call for series proposals, I remember one of the asks being, let's take some of these buzzwords and really look at them through a justice lens. And there's not much of a buzzier buzzword than trauma-informed education. And so my book is less about there was a lot out there already about trauma-informed education in this kind of deficit way of, oh, let's feel really sad for all these kids. And mine instead is really asking, what if we took the concept of trauma and in a really justice-oriented way, looked at how we should transform schools through that lens? And then I have a new book coming out in 2 weeks called Becoming an Everyday Changemaker, comes out on April 1st. And this is really, in a lot of ways, a follow-up to the first one. A lot of people read my first book and said, that's nice, Alex, but I'm just one teacher. How am I supposed to make change given my district leadership and these state laws and the general environment? And I don't know how to really go about all this. And so I tried to take this idea. I've read so many books about school change and leadership that are like, if you just do these couple of steps and convince these people, then it's all going to be great. And so I'm really looking at it through this trauma and justice lens of how does change actually work? What are some of the justice-oriented tools we can use? And is really supposed to be a little bit of a guide for that teacher who says, I want to make change and I don't really know where to get started.
Thanks, Alex. Jenna?
Hello, everyone. My name is Jenna Chandler Ward. I am the co-author of Learning and Teaching While White, Anti-Racist Strategies for School Communities. My co-author is Elizabeth Denevy. And again, we wrote the book that we wish we had because we feel that as white teachers in white systems, we were causing a lot of harm. And neither of us were really required to take a look at our own identity and how it was impacting our teaching. And so we wrote the book we wish we had. And as Shawna said, the system is working as designed. And so we really wanted to turn a light on what is that system if schools were created for and by white people. Why are we never talking about whiteness when we talk about race and education? And what is the baseline that everything is being judged from? Where did that come from? So that's really the emphasis of our book, and trying to shine a light on the system so we can stop talking about fixing kids and look at how the system is designed to fail kids.
Thank you. These books are all so good. Did I mention that? So last but not least, I've been saving Justin for last because your book is coming out soon. I guess it's the next one that the cover, we just landed on a cover. And I'm so excited about this book. Just the writing in it is beautiful. The content is powerful. It's very narrative. It's so good. So would you like to talk a little bit about your book that we'll be seeing soon?
Sure. Thanks, Paul. Yeah, so I'm Justin, or JPB Gerald. The author name is JPB on there, but I can't change my team's display name. Anyway, the book is called Embracing the Exceptions, Meeting the Needs of Neurodivergent Students of Color. Can't hold it up because it's not out yet. but you know, they're gonna flash the image later. Anyway, so why did I write the book? Well, the short answer is that I myself got diagnosed with ADHD when I was 35, which was 2 years ago, 2.5, whatever. And I started looking at research. You know, I'd been looking into it beforehand. That's how I got the evaluation. And I realized that everything about the group of neurodivergent people of color or students of color was either too broad or too narrow, right? It was either neurodivergence in general, which would tend to favor one group of people, or it was about students of color in general, but it wasn't really talking about that intersection. Or it was so narrow that it was specifically like autism in girls of color, right? This is a valuable group and it's in the book to some extent, but that sort of middle ground between neurodivergence, which is a broad category, and students of color, which is obviously an extremely broad category, it didn't really exist. If you want this research, you have to go either deep into academic journals and piece it together, and you can't get any stories. You just get, you know, underdiagnosis statistics, or you know, the harm that comes to us, and it does. And I just wanted to tell our stories about us, for us, and by us, so that the teachers, and I assume everyone reading really wants to do right by us, can hear what we have to say, what we experience, and what we wish would have gone differently. And hopefully future writing and research can come of it so that it isn't the only thing in that intersection.
Awesome. Thank you. These books, now I want to read all these books again.